Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
And a very warm welcome to the deep dive. If you're with us today, it means you've handed us an incredible set of sources, a really exhaustive analysis, both exegetical and ethical, of Surah Al-Waqi'ah. That's the 56th chapter of the Holy Quran.
It's a powerhouse of a chapter.
It really is. And our mission today is to get right into the heart of these sources and figure out the core objective of this surah. I mean, this isn't just about reading a text, is it? It's about understanding how this chapter is basically a spiritual and intellectual program. A program designed to create Yaqeen, that absolute, unshakable certainty in the reality of the resurrection. And in doing that, it seems to want to just completely restructure how you see the world.
That's a perfect way to put it. It wants to get you to look past the illusions of worldly status, wealth, all of that temporary stuff.
Exactly.
You've absolutely nailed it. The material we're looking at, it treats this surah less like a collection of verses and more like a complete blueprint.
A blueprint for what exactly?
Yeah. For a total cognitive and moral transformation. The idea is if you genuinely internalize the reality that Al-Waaqia describes, you almost become inoculated.
Inoculated against what?
Against the materialist worldview that, just dominates everything today. That worldview that tells you what you see, what you can touch, that's all there is.
And therefore your status here is the only game in town.
Precisely. And this surah just arrives and completely demolishes that entire premise.
Okay, so let's start with the name itself. It's called Al-Waqi'ah, the inevitable event, the reality. Why that specific name? I mean, the Day of Judgment has so many other names, really powerful ones.
It does.
Al-Sa, the hour, or Al-Qariya, the striking calamity. What makes Al-Waqi'ah different?
That's a fantastic question. And what's so fascinating is the focus on the root verb, waqa. It means to fall or to occur.
Okay.
So when you look at those other names you mentioned, Al-Sa is about timing, right? The moment it happens. Al-Qariya is about the shock, the impact. But Al-Waqi'ah, it focuses on what the sources call ontological necessity.
Ontological necessity. Okay, that's a heavy term. You have to break that down for us.
Right. It is a bit academic. But really, all it means is that it has to happen. It's a non-negotiable truth that's literally woven into the fabric of existence itself.
So it's part of reality source code, in a way.
Exactly. Yeah. By using this name, it just strips away any possibility of doubt. You have to remember the audience, the Meccan elites. They thought the resurrection was, frankly, an absurd fantasy.
So this name is a direct response to them.
A direct challenge. By calling it Al-Waqi'ah, the surah is basically declaring, look, you're wasting your time debating this. It is a guaranteed absolute occurrence, whether you deny it or not. It moves the whole thing from, philosophical speculation
into the realm of just cold, hard, inevitable fact.
That's it. It's a fact waiting to happen.
Okay, let's unpack that context a little more. The sources all emphasize this was revealed in the Meccan period. We hear that phrase a lot, but why is that specific context so fundamental for this surah?
It's intensely important. Because the Meccan period wasn't about debates over, say, ritual law. It wasn't how should we pray or how should we fast.
Right, it was more foundational.
It was a fundamental debate over metaphysics. The Quraysh were challenging the very idea of life after death. They were challenging tawhid, absolute monotheism. Their worldview was that this life is all there is. Physical, finite.
And that's it.
And that's it. So the main objective of Al-Waqi'ah is, you could say, therapeutic.
Therapeutic? How so?
Its goal is to achieve that yaqeen, that certainty in the resurrection, and in doing so, to logically dismantle this atheistic materialism. The scholars who focus on the surah's structure, they note that the whole sequence is designed to destroy the skeptic's comfort zone.
It seems very deliberate.
It's perfectly calibrated. It presents a philosophical case, but in the most vivid, physical, undeniable terms possible.
Before we dig into that structure, we have to talk about something, a really popular belief around this surah that our sources tackle head-on.
I think I know where you're going with this.
The idea that this is the surah of wealth, that if you recite it, it wards off poverty, faqr. For a lot of people, that's the main reason they read it every day.
Yes. And this is exactly where we need to apply the rigor of Hadith methodology, which, your sources are very careful to do. Popular piety can sometimes run ahead of scholarly verification.
And this is a classic example.
A prime example. Now, the narration that promises you won't face poverty if you recite Al-Waqi'ah every night, it was recorded. You can find it in sources like Al-Bayhaqi's collection.
But there's a big but, isn't there? The scholarly consensus says it's weak.
Exactly. The major authorities in authenticating hadith, and we're talking about giants here, like Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal in the classical era and Sheikh Al-Albani more recently, they classified this specific narration as da'if, weak.
And why is that? What makes it weak?
The problem is, in the chain of transmission, the isnad. Often there's a missing link, or one of the narrators in the chain isn't considered fully reliable. Now, some scholars did allow using weak narrations for, say, general encouragement.
For encouraging good deeds.
Right. But they were very clear that these don't establish a definitive practice of the prophet, a sunnah, or an absolute guaranteed promise.
That's a really important distinction.
Yeah.
It's about knowing the why behind what we do. So if that financial promise is on a weak footing, what's the authentic, profound virtue of this surah?
The authentic virtue is it's much heavier. It's found in Jami's at Tirmidhi, a highly reliable collection. The story goes that Abu Bakr noticed the prophet had started getting gray hair.
Physically gray.
Yes. And when he asked why, the prophet responded by mentioning Surah Hud, Al-Waqi'ah, and a few others, and he said, "They made me gray."
Wow. The implication of that is just staggering. It's the sheer weight of the message in the surah, the accountability it brings, that cause a physical change in the prophet himself.
Not the promise of a reward.
No.
And that just completely reframes the whole purpose of the surah, doesn't it? Its primary function is not financial liquidity. It's about curing the poverty of the soul.
The poverty of the soul, you mean ghaflah, heedlessness.
Precisely. That deep spiritual poverty that comes from forgetting who you are, what your purpose is, and that you will be held accountable. By imposing this heavy spiritual weight, this taklif, the surah spiritually matures you. It replaces that heedlessness with a genuine sense of urgency and focus.
So if you gain that certainty, that yaqeen, then you are spiritually wealthy, no matter what your bank balance looks like.
You've got it. The surah promises to eliminate the one poverty that truly, truly matters.
That reframing it's essential for anyone who comes to this chapter just looking for material comfort. It's like the surah saying, you're asking for the wrong thing. I'm offering you something infinitely more valuable.
Exactly. It's an intellectual correction.
So let's look at how that correction is structured. Our sources point out 3 distinct movements, almost like a symphony, that give the surah its integrity.
Yes, and these 3 movements, which classical commentators like Al-Razi and Al-Likai mapped out, they make sure the surah speaks to the heart, the mind, and the spirit. In sequence, the whole thing is a program for creating certainty.
So the first movement is the eschatological sorting.
Right. Verses 1 to 56. This is the big, disruptive, visceral part. It kicks off with the world literally shaking, the cosmos being disrupted, and then immediately it moves to sorting humanity into its 3 final categories.
It grabs you by the collar.
It does. It grabs your attention with this sheer, terrifying reality.
And then the surah shifts gears from the visceral to the cerebral.
That's the second movement, the rational demonstrations, verses 57 through 74. This is the philosophical argument aimed at the materialists. Once you're shocked by the reality of the hereafter, Allah then challenges you to explain the world you see every day.
Using 4 simple things.
4 simple, observable things: life, agriculture, water, and fire. It forces you to connect these mundane processes you take for granted to the absolute necessity of a divine creator.
And finally, the conclusion. It seals the deal.
The third movement, verses 75 to 96, is the final oath and confrontation. It confirms the truth of the Quran itself with this magnificent oath by the stars. And then, crucially, it brings that huge macro event of Judgment Day right down to the micro event of your own personal death.
The death rattle.
The death rattle. It makes the entire reality immediate and inescapable for every single person.
All right, let's step into the event itself then, the Al-Waaqia. As you said, the shift is from some vague theoretical idea to an imminent physical reality. And verses 1 and 2 deliver that punch immediately.
Yeah.
When the inevitable event occurs, there's no denying its occurrence. What's going on with the language there? The use of the past tense is really striking.
The language is just masterful. Ida hawakati al-Waaqia. You have the conditional particle ida, when, which implies a certainty that's just waiting for its moment. But it's paired with the past tense verb, waqat. It occurred.
So it's spoken of as if it's already happened.
It's spoken of as history because from the divine perspective, it is an accomplished fact. It is so guaranteed that it's in the past tense.
That's a powerful psychological tool. It basically collapses the timeline we live on.
It's a profound strategy against what economists call future discounting.
Future discounting.
Yeah, it's a known human bias. We are wired to heavily discount risks and rewards that feel far away in the future. Why save for retirement? Why eat healthy today?
Why worry about spiritual accountability? It's all so far away.
Exactly. It feels decades away, so we undervalue it. This verse just destroys that complacency. It demands that the believer adopts a state of, well, anticipated presence. If the event has, in a metaphysical sense, already happened.
How can you possibly ignore the consequences of your actions right now?
You can't. The apathy that's built into secular materialism just can't survive that kind of urgency.
And the most dramatic consequence of this new reality is a complete upending of our worldly power structures. Verse 3 is just 2 words, but it's the ultimate social critique. Bringing down some, raising up others. Kafidat and Rafi'ah.
That 2-word summary is the entire theological revolution of the surah. Classical scholars, people like Al-Sa'di and Ibn Ashur, they stress that this is the moment when all worldly metrics just become meaningless.
All the hierarchies we build.
Financial, corporate, political, social media followers, all of it is not just paused, it's completely inverted.
So the arrogant, the powerful.
The person who defined their whole identity by their power in this dunya, they are lowered. Kafidatun. And the humble, the oppressed, the person whose piety was ignored or maybe even ridiculed, they are raised. Rafi'ah. The inversion is total.
Give us an example.
Okay. The person who dedicated their entire life to building a massive corporate empire is lowered. The janitor who spent their breaks in sincere, quiet prayer is raised.
But that is a deeply challenging idea, especially in a meritocratic, status-obsessed society like ours. I mean, if you're a high achiever or someone who has worked really hard to climb the ladder, how do you reconcile that ambition with this lesson that it's all destined to be turned upside down?
That is the core tension the surah wants you to feel. It's not saying don't work or don't be successful, but it's giving you the antidote to status anxiety and to the poison of arrogance.
Okay.
The challenge is to ask yourself why you're climbing that ladder. Is your fuel validation from other people, or is it getting closer to God? If your entire self-worth is tied up in your job title, your salary, your follower count, this verse is telling you those metrics are not only temporary, they're potentially dangerous.
So the only metric that survives the shaking is taqwa.
Your conscious awareness of God. That's it. This verse is a recalibration. It dismantles classism. It dismantles personal vanity. It forces you to shift your whole definition of success from winning the world's game to winning the next world's game.
And this social inversion happens after an incredible physical dissolution of the world as we know it.
Yeah.
Verses 4 to 6 paint this terrifying picture. The earth is violently shaken, Raja, and the mountains, a very symbol of permanence.
They're broken down. They crumble, Busa.
And they become dispersing dust. Haba an manbatha.
And that progression of destruction is so deliberate. Raja isn't a gentle tremor. It's a violent, repetitive convulsion. It destabilizes the whole planet. Busa is like grinding something dry into a fine powder. But you really have to focus on that final image. Haban Munbatha.
What exactly is that?
Early commentators like Ali ibn Abi Talib and Ibn Abbas, they described it as those incredibly fine, weightless dust motes you see dancing in a single ray of sunlight in a dark room.
Wow. So they're visible, but you can't grasp them. They have no substance.
No substance at all. Utterly weightless. Mountains, which are the epitome of solidity and permanence, are reduced to this impalpable nothingness. Imagine how that would shock the desert Arabs whose whole world was defined by the stability of the land and mountains.
So the lesson is the extreme fragility of materialism.
It takes it to its absolute limit. It's a life lesson that all human legacy is ephemeral. We're obsessed with building things that last, right? Empires, digital archives, monuments.
It'll last 1,000 years.
Exactly, but this verse reminds us that entropy is the destiny of all creation. All that physical stuff we invest in will become haba. Nothing. The operational insight is singular. You have to direct your resources, your time, your money, your effort towards investments that actually survive the shaking.
Sincere deeds, character, faith.
Those are the only things immune to this cosmic pulverization. It's an urgent call to divest from the temporary and invest in the eternal.
So the moment the cosmos is pulverized, humanity is sorted. Verse 7 says, and you become of 3 kinds. We're categorized by spiritual merit alone. Let's start at the top, the absolute peak. As-Sabiqun, the forerunners. The repetition in verses 10 and 11 is so emphatic. And the forerunners, those are the ones brought near to Allah.
That repetition, asabikun asabikun, it's the linguistic key. It's a device for maximum magnification. It's shouting at you that this rank is something special, something exceptional.
So who are they?
Ibn Kathir gives a great synthesis of their identity. It includes the prophets, of course, the truthful, the siddiqun, the martyrs. But crucially, it also includes anyone who consistently showed a commitment to being foremost.
Foremost in what?
In hastening toward good deeds, in fulfilling their obligations. In this life, they were the ones who sprinted while everyone else was just walking. And as a result, they become al-muqarrabun, the ones brought closest to the divine presence.
Now, this rank is obviously inspiring, but it can also create a lot of anxiety for the average believer. And that's because of the demographics mentioned right after in verses 13 and 14. They're described as a multitude of the former peoples and a few of the later peoples. That immediately makes it sound like this elite rank is incredibly hard, maybe even impossible, for people like us today.
And that is precisely the anxiety it's meant to induce, and it's why the scholars have pored over these verses. There are basically two major interpretations. Interpretation A, which was favored by early scholars like Al-Tabari, says former peoples means the nations of previous prophets, Noah, Moses, Jesus, and so on. Later peoples means the Ummah of Muhammad, peace be upon him.
So in that view, the proportion of elite saints is just way smaller today.
Yeah.
Which is kind of demotivating.
It can be crushingly demotivating. How does the average person who's just struggling to get through their daily obligations avoid despair with that view?
Exactly. Is there any comfort for people who feel like they're always behind in the spiritual race?
There is, and it comes from Interpretation B, which was championed by Ibn Kathir. He argues that both former and later refer only to the Ummah of Muhammad.
Oh, interesting.
So the former are the companions, the Sahaba, and the first few righteous generations. They had the unique advantage of direct, perfect mentorship from the Prophet. The few from the later peoples are the great scholars, the spiritual masters, and the exemplary believers from the latter days from our times.
That feels more hopeful.
It is. And Ibn Kathir backs this up by pointing to the authentic Hadith, where the Prophet expressed his hope that his Ummah would make up half the people of paradise. So the ultimate success of the masses, the Ashab al-Yamin, is guaranteed, even if that absolute top-tier elite rank is numerically smaller in later times.
So the lesson isn't to despair.
Not at all. It's to understand that the reward is proportional to the effort and the difficulty of your time. Spiritual sprinting today against this torrent of modern distractions carries immense, immense weight.
Let's talk about the rewards for the Sabiqun. They're on these gold-woven thrones, Surur Maduna, and they're facing each other, Mutakabilan. That detail, facing each other, it's often just skipped over, but our sources say it's a cornerstone of their reward. Why is that so important?
It's one of the most powerful psychological insights in the whole surah. Think about our lives here. We're constantly dealing with social friction. There's hierarchy, there's resentment, unspoken envy.
Yeah.
We spend so much energy worrying about what other people think of us.
We are always guarding our backs, even when we're sitting with people.
Yep. Exactly, physically and emotionally. So mutakabilan, facing each other, symbolizes the total absolute removal of all of that worldly psychological poison. Al-Sharawi pointed out this means no envy, no anxiety, no backbiting, no hidden agendas. The communion is perfect. It's symmetrical, pure, transparent.
So one of the deepest rewards of paradise is healed relationships.
It's the healing of the soul from every kind of social toxicity that infects us down here, whether it's resentment at work or jealousy online. True, perfect human connection, free from all malice. That's a core element of the highest reward.
And their environment guarantees perpetual vitality, which counters our deepest fears of aging and decay.
Yes. They're served by Wilden Mukhalladun, immortal youths, ensuring a state of eternal freshness and vitality. And then there's the drink they have, this purified wine that they consume without any headache, la yusaron, or intoxication, la yunsifan.
Which demonstrates a fascinating principle, right? A worldly prohibition protects us from harm, but the reward in the next life is a perfected, consequence-free version of that same desire.
You've hit it perfectly. In the dunya, alcohol is forbidden because it degrades the intellect, which is our highest gift. It leads to destruction. But in paradise, that desire is fulfilled in a way that elevates joy, elevates the intellect. It's all the pleasure with none of the degradation, no hangover, no loss of control. It confirms the desire isn't inherently evil, but the worldly means and consequences are destructive. In the hereafter, it's perfected.
So the real-life lesson from this category of the foremost is to aim for ihsan, the ambition for excellence.
It's a direct command to reject spiritual minimalism. The goal isn't just to scrape by and avoid the fire. The goal is to reach the highest possible station. It demands a foremost mindset. Don't wait to be told. Actively run towards every opportunity for good, for charity, for knowledge, for forgiveness. Treat every moment as a chance to get closer to the Creator.
Okay, let's move to the second category, Ashab al-Yamin, the companions of the right. This is the great group of hope, the successful masses, the righteous people who held onto their faith. And their demographics are so encouraging. A multitude from the former and a multitude from the later.
And that's the immense comfort of the surah. It confirms that success is genuinely accessible to the vast majority of believers who just walk that middle path. And their rewards are all about restoration, comfort, and the cleansing of worldly pains.
Let's look at the botanical symbolism. They are among Sidr Makdud thornless lote trees.
Right, so a low tree in the desert is precious. It gives shade, it gives fruit, but it's covered in these sharp, vicious thorns. The word maktud means those thorns have been perfectly removed.
So it symbolizes the purification of worldly blessings.
Exactly. Think about our blessings here. Wealth comes with taxes and people being envious. Fame comes with scrutiny. Children come with stress and no sleep. Every joy has a thorn.
A downside.
A downside. In paradise, the companions of the right get only the pure, unadulterated benefit, with all the annoyance and negative consequences just gone. And they also enjoy zil-mamdud, extended shade. The Prophet described this as a shade so vast a rider could travel under it for 100 years.
Which represents relief from the heat of worldly anxiety and stress.
It's the ultimate relief. It is the reward for the daily grind of life.
There's a section here that's profoundly restorative, talking about the women in verses 35 to 37. Created anew, insha, made virgins, loving equal in age. How do the exegetes understand this physical and emotional restoration?
The classical Sunni Tafsir is very clear that this is primarily referring to the righteous women of this world. It's a profound act of divine mercy and justice. Women who might have suffered from chronic illness or disability or just the natural decay of old age, they are recreated, insha, anew, in their physical prime. It validates the natural human desire for health and beauty.
But it's more than just physical.
So much more. The terms Yuraban, meaning loving, and Atraban, equal in age, address the emotional and relational side. Atraban removes the disconnects that can happen in a marriage over decades. And Yurban implies deep affection, emotional intelligence, and mutual love. It's about healing the rifts, the misunderstandings, the emotional exhaustion that can plague human marriages.
So it's a promise of not just physical perfection, but perfect loving partnership for every righteous woman.
And that's why the overarching lesson from the Companions of the Right is this promise of complete restoration. It's counseling patience to anyone who is suffering now. Chronic illness, disability, the emotional toll of a tough marriage, the burdens of getting old.
Your suffering is seen.
It is seen, and your desire for health and beauty and emotional peace will be completely fulfilled and validated in the perfection of the hereafter.
And now we have to face the sobering counterpoint. Ashab al-Shamal, the companions of the left. Their environment is just a terrifying inversion of everything we just heard.
It's a deliberate, stark contrast to emphasize what they've lost. Instead of cool shade, they get samum, a scorching toxic wind, and hamim, boiling water. Their only shade is yamum, black smoke, which offers no coolness and no honor. It is an environment of pure degradation and distress.
And what brought them here? Verses 45 and 36 diagnose their fate with two specific worldly behaviors.
And this diagnosis is so instructive for us today. The first cause. Kanu qabla dhalika mutrafin. They were indulgent in luxury. Now, itraf doesn't just mean you were wealthy. It means you allowed excessive comfort to corrupt your soul, to make you spiritually soft.
Sedated by ease.
It's a spiritual anesthesia. It numbed their hearts to higher truths.
And the second cause.
Yusruna ala hinth alazim. They persisted in the great sin. And the key word there is israr. Persistence. They didn't just stumble into sin, they normalized it. They continued it willfully. They refused to repent, to seek tawbah.
And the great sin is generally taken to mean polytheism or denying the resurrection.
Yes. And the combination is lethal. They were numbed by luxury, and that numbness allowed them to persist in profound error without ever waking up.
So the life lesson here is incredibly counterintuitive for our modern society, which is obsessed with comfort. Excessive ease is a spiritual danger.
It's the trap of hedonistic adaptation. That comfort quickly becomes your new normal, your baseline, and your heart hardens to real gratitude and accountability. The critical lesson is to practice voluntary discomfort.
Through things like fasting or simplicity.
Regular fasting, intentional simplicity, active charity, things that prevent the soul from becoming mutraf. The Sutta is warning us that the biggest danger isn't just committing a sin, it's normalizing that sin and refusing to ask for forgiveness.
The Sutta then makes this huge shift. It moves from describing the final day to this direct intellectual challenge, the phase of rational demonstrations. Let's spend some real time on these 4 proofs, starting with the most personal one, the origin of life. Verses 58-59 ask, have you seen that which you emit? Is it you who creates it, or are we the creator?
This is such a direct assault on the arrogance of the self-made person. It forces you to acknowledge your absolute dependency. A person performs the physical act, but as Al-Razi noted, they have zero control over the result. Zero.
You can try 1,000 times and nothing happens.
Exactly. The biological miracle, that fluid becoming a clot, the intricate dance of genetic coding, the differentiation of cells, and then the infusing of the soul, all of that is completely outside of human control.
But hold on, what about modern science? We have IVF, we have genome sequencing. Doesn't that challenge the idea that we have no control?
That's a great question. But it actually reinforces the premise, just on a more complex level. We can assist the process now, sure. We can manipulate the environment, select a sperm, implant an embryo.
But we still can't create life from non-life.
We cannot. We cannot dictate which single sperm makes the journey. We can't guarantee the success of the implantation. And we have absolutely no control over the moment the soul enters. Our technology lets us manage some variables, but the essential core act of creation remains an external agency.
And then verse 60 brings in death as part of that same plan.
Yes, it decrees death as a necessary, calibrated phase of the journey, not an accident. The same wisdom that decreed your birth decrees your death. The life lesson here is intellectual humility. We have to crush that arrogance that comes with professional or technological success. Our very existence, our children, our knowledge, it's all a continuous act of divine sustainment, not a personal achievement.
The second proof is agriculture, the foundation of civilization. Verses 63-64. Have you seen that which you sow? Is it you who makes it grow, or are we the grower?
This draws such a sharp line between human effort and divine outcome, and it's so relevant to our careers today. The farmer engages in hearth. That's the human effort.
The plowing, the strategy, the investment, scattering the seed.
All that. But who causes the czars? The growth. Who splits open the seed casing, guides that tiny shoot up through the dark earth, and makes sure the sun, the soil, and the water all work together perfectly.
But in the modern corporate world, our intense strategies and our relentless hard work, they do seem to generate results. We spend billions on market research and optimization. Doesn't the person who plans better and works harder just win?
And they absolutely should work harder. That effort, that hearth is required. But the Sutta frees the believer from the anxiety of being the owner of the outcome, the czar. We are managers of our effort, but we are not the masters of the results.
So things like a global supply chain failure or a certain market crash.
Completely outside your control, no matter how good your plan was. The life lesson is the theology of business. It's tawakkul, reliance. You sow the seed, your strategy, your effort, your resources, with excellence, with ihsan. But you submit the outcome, the growth, the success, the profit to the divine.
Maximum effort coupled with sincere submission.
And that reality liberates you. It lets you persevere even when a venture fails, because you know your effort was seen and recorded, even if the result you wanted was withheld for a higher wisdom. Verse 65 reminds us of this fragility. If we willed, we could make it dry debris. All of our food security is a continuous gift.
The third proof moves to water, something we take so granted more than anything. Verses 68-70. Have you seen the water that you drink? If we willed, we could make it better.
And that assumption that fresh water is a right is exactly what's being challenged. The focus is on the sweet, drinkable water. Geochemically, water is the universal solvent. It naturally picks up salts and impurities.
So it should be salty.
The fact that this immense global hydrological cycle of evaporation, condensation, rain, gravity continuously purifies it and keeps it sweet, it's a staggering ongoing chemical mercy. If the laws of physics were tweaked just slightly, all our rain would be saline. Civilization would end.
The stability of that salt-freshwater balance is a constant miracle.
It is, and the life lesson that flows from that is conscious gratitude or mindfulness. We have to shift our baseline of thankfulness.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we're quick to thank God for the extras, right? The unexpected promotion, the new car, but we completely overlook the constants, the air we breathe, the fact our organs are working, the glass of fresh water. The mandate here is to pause when you do these automatic things and reflect on the huge, intricate systems, atmospheric pressure, geology, chemistry, that are all cooperating perfectly just to bring that water to your lips.
It forces a radical shift in gratitude from what I want to the miraculous sustainment of what I already have.
You've got it.
And the final proof is fire, which we can read as energy, the fuel of civilization. Verses 71-73, have you seen the fire that you ignite? We have made it a reminder and provision for the travelers.
Fire, which comes from the green tree, carbon-based fuel, whether it's wood or oil, it represents the energy that makes civilization possible, from cooking our food to powering the entire global economy. And the Surah says it has a dual function.
What are they?
First, it's a tadhkira, a reminder. Al-Qurtubi noted that the immediate heat, the pain of a burn, serves as a constant physical reminder of hellfire. It's a parable of consequence. Second, it's a matan lil muqwin, a provision for travelers. It symbolizes comfort, warmth, and a resource in the wilderness of this dunya. It helps us on our journey.
So energy, technology, all forms of power. They're basically a litmus test for the soul.
They're the ultimate test of stewardship of technology. Fire, and by extension, all the power, wealth, and tech we have, is a provision if we use it correctly, to sustain life, to uphold justice, to help us on our journey to God. But if we misuse it, to oppress, to destroy, to consume heedlessly, it immediately becomes that tadhkira, a reminder of punishment.
So the mandate is to use the resources we have to facilitate our travel to the hereafter, not to burn the world down.
Or ourselves, exactly.
The Surah now seals its entire argument. It moves from those rational proofs back to the cosmic scale. Verses 75-76 have this vast, incredible oath. But nay, I swear by the setting of the stars, and indeed it is an oath if you could know most great. Why swear by the positions of the stars to validate the Quran?
It's a way of connecting the immense, unfathomable order of the cosmos to the certainty of the divine message. Mawaqi al-Nujum implies not just stars, but their positions, their orbits, the vast astronomical distances between them. And that little phrase, if you could know, is amazing. It suggests a scientific depth that humanity would only begin to grasp centuries later.
Like we're only now starting to understand the scale of that oath.
We're seeing light from stars that might have died millions of years ago. This immense, perfectly ordered cosmos is the silent witness to the truth of the revelation.
And the object of that great oath is to validate that this is indeed a noble Quran.
Yes. Just as the stars are fixed, high guides that orient a traveler in physical darkness, the Quran is the high protected guide that orients the soul in spiritual darkness. And that leads right to the sanctity of the text in verse 79. None touch it except the purified.
This verse is the basis for requiring ritual purity, wudu, before handling the physical book. But our sources point to a deeper spiritual layer here.
That's right. The jurisprudential ruling, the need for physical tahara to touch the mushaf, is essential, and it's the majority Sunni view. But scholars like Al-Ghazali really emphasize the spiritual implication. He said that the deep realities, the haqq of the Quran, are withheld from hearts that are impure.
And impure here means what? Spiritual diseases.
Arrogance, deep-seated doubt, persistent indulgence in sin. The life lesson is that adab, proper etiquette, spiritual preparation, is the non-negotiable gateway to knowledge. You can't just casually approach this noble Quran with a haughty heart and expect to get its deepest secrets. You prepare your body, and you must prepare your intellect and spirit too.
And then, the Surah delivers its final, most inescapable reality check. It confronts you with your own death. Verses 83-85 paint this visceral scene. The soul reaching the throat, the hulkum, the death rattle.
This is the critical moment. The moment all worldly control completely and utterly vanishes. The dying person is surrounded by everything that defined their life, their family, their wealth, their doctors, their influence. But the Quran says they are just helplessly watching.
All the medical technology, all the money, all the power is useless.
It's all rendered null. They can't push the soul back, not even 1 inch. The ultimate failure of materialism is laid bare in that moment. It cannot save you from your own transition.
And right at that peak of human helplessness, divine proximity is asserted.
Absolutely. Allah says he is closer to him than you, but you see not. What a powerful statement. It underscores that in that final, most important moment of your existence, the only relationship that matters is the one between the creator and the created. Every distraction, every shield of worldly power is stripped away. We can't see him, but he is closest when we need him most.
The operational mandate from this final section, then, has to be preparation.
It's the only rational conclusion. Since you cannot stop the exit, since the timeline is collapsed and that moment is inevitable, the only urgent mandate is to make sure the destination is secure. You're forced to ask yourself, what have I prepared for this final, closest meeting with the one who sustains my every breath, especially since everyone else around me will be helpless to do anything?
This has been a deeply insightful and I think truly transformative deep dive into Surah Al-Waqi'ah. It's so clear that this chapter is this structured program. It moves you from cosmic destabilization to intellectual challenge, and then finally to this personal, unavoidable confrontation with reality.
And if we try to synthesize the life lessons, the operational insights from the sources, they really do provide a focused spiritual action plan for anyone listening.
Okay, what are they?
First, there has to be cognitive reframing. You have to intentionally start seeing worldly wealth, career status, social metrics as temporary variables that are destined for a complete inversion. If you're striving for success, that's great, but let the motive be divine pleasure, not what people think of you.
Second, spiritual ambition.
Exactly. Reject the mediocrity of spiritual minimalism. Use that category of as-sabaqun, the foremost, as your target. Strive for Isan continuous excellence in everything you do and intend.
And third,
Radical mindfulness. Cultivate a baseline of gratitude by intentionally seeing every fundamental process of life, every drink of water, every new baby, every success in your work, as a continuous, active, miraculous intervention from the divine that demands your conscious thanks.
and the surah culminates not with a threat, but with this clear prescriptive command in the final verse. So glorify the name of your Lord, the Most Great. That feels like the required transition from realization from Yaqeen into active, persistent worship.
It brings us perfectly back to where we started, the poverty of the soul. The sources confirm that a heart that is filled with the certainty of Al-Waaqia is rich beyond any need for worldly validation or wealth. It cures that spiritual heedlessness, that ghaflah. So for you, the listener, the ultimate question has to be, knowing that the event is inevitable and knowing that spiritual excellence is attainable, how does this imperative to achieve a foremost mindset change the way you manage the power, the resources, and the provision you have today?
Will you use your energy as a provision for the journey to God?
Or as fuel for the fire of worldly distraction?
We hope this deep dive has given you a renewed sense of that unshakable Yaqeen. Until the next time, may your focus remain steadfast.